The Cleveland Browns' first 53-man roster lasted a total of about 21 hours. Browns make changes today. They pick up a cornerback off of waivers, which leads to a subsequent move. 15 out of 16 spots in the practice squad are now filled, and a brand new shiny toy for Bill Callahan to work with. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LLB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, as many as you know, is all the new traffic that's coming in here. This is now my 7th season covering the Browns here for Locked On Browns. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. To the growing everyday crowd, I appreciate you all, and everybody should join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I just want to say I appreciate everybody, and I do apologize for the last couple episodes. I don't know if it was the wire. I don't know if it was the microphone. But as soon as the Amazon man showed up here today, all that stuff got tossed to the trash. New season, I guess, why not? We started anew, right? But I appreciate you all for, hanging through, obviously a couple tough days here. News of the day, obviously, to the Browns. The waiver claims are in. The Browns had nobody that they released yesterday claimed. So the practice squad, most of the names we obviously know. The Browns do make one waiver claim. Kahlef Hailassie. Kahlef Hailassie was an undrafted rookie this past year in 2023 out of Western Kentucky. About 6'1" and change, about 200. Not a lot of athletic testing numbers. Some of the testing he did not do. One that did stand out to me, and is one that I use big time to evaluate athleticism in prospects, ran a 6.68 3-cone. When you get below 7, those are good numbers. Running backs, wide receivers, defensive backs, you want to start creeping closer, and obviously much lower than that. 6.68 for a 3-cone time is fantastic from Kahlef Hailassie. He had an interception in the preseason game where the Chiefs played down in New Orleans. It was a great looking catch. Ball was high and away, was able to get both feet in bounds. Obviously, the Browns got a lot of looks at him last week when the Browns were in Kansas City playing against the Chiefs. This guy, actually, for an undrafted free agent, I don't know how he got to wear a number like 12. That's normally as an undrafted free agent, you get 49, or you get whatever jersey number is left, essentially. But somehow, some way, he got to rock a pretty decent number here. The subsequent move, now keep in mind, they couldn't do anything today as far as guys who could potentially go to IR, whether that is Alex Wright, whether that is Jordan Kunaszyk, and we'll get to a little bit more on Alex Wright here in a minute. Those guys cannot go to injured reserve till 4 o'clock. If they go on injured reserve before 4 o'clock, they are going on injured reserve for the entire season. So a move had to be made to bring Kahlef Hailassie in here. And that move, which was a bit of surprise to me, was cornerback A.J. Green. A.J. Green had about $900,000 guaranteed coming to him this year. But the issue for A.J. Green is, and as much as the Browns liked him and thought he was a functional part of a defense, functional part of special teams, Jim Schwartz is taking this defense and his coverage approach more towards that of one. It's more man-to-man. He's trying to take advantage of what he's got in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and, of course, Martin Emerson. So more man that was going to be played wasn't necessarily something that was going to aid A.J. Green so much. I guess the Browns saw the potential here in a player like Hailassie where they could move on for somebody they liked. Coach Stefanski did speak today, said he would love to still have A.J. Green on the practice squad. We'll see, though. A.J. Green now with some time under his belt, with some tape under his belt. Maybe he'll have some appeal, and he will be subject to waivers tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So we'll know where A.J. Green is come Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Cade York. Browns had spoke about how they wanted to bring Cade York back, and Cade York chose not to come back to sign to the practice squad with the Cleveland Browns. Cade York instead chose to sign to the practice squad of the Tennessee Titans. If you remember yesterday, I was talking about a lot of kicker trades. Nick Folk is now the kicker for the Tennessee Titans. Cade York is there now on the practice squad. Cade York can have an opportunity to get it all worked out mentally. I think one of the things from Cade York is taking what he's always done and trying to apply what maybe, those who are trying to work with him, and change him and get him more accurate and more consistent. I think he's got a problem where he's fluctuating back and forth from what he's always done and from what he's, the new approach that he's been trying to be taught. Either way, and who knows? I mean, we were getting stats from practice that he was making every kick. Then you get, Jake Trotter, on a podcast or an interview piece and saying that he was at a practice and he didn't say Cade York make a single kick for 30 minutes. So who knows what truly went on? But either way, Cade York does move on to the Tennessee Titans. I got to be honest, I don't blame him. I think the whole situation here and have to come back and try to revamp yourself. And look, it's a tough fan base in Cleveland. You guys are a tough fan base, and the media is certainly tough. So it's not always easy for the situation he went through, where he went from basically a week one darling last year to all of a sudden, here was a guy basically trying to reshape his entire career on the fly. We'll see how it works, and we'll see. And of course, interesting enough, week 3, Browns played the Tennessee Titans, and can imagine if Cade York was somehow, some way involved in that game, that would certainly bring a chuckle or two, right? One other move, just 2 other things here. Now we've talked about the 2 injured players, Jordan Kunaszyk, and of course, Alex Wright. Today we're hearing more like certainty as far as going to IR on Jordan Kunaszyk. You don't seem to hear that same bit of certainty as far as Alex Wright going on to IR. Alex, knee surgery a couple of weeks ago. If you were to go on short-term IR, the earliest you would be able to be brought back from IR would be week 5. Week 5 is the Browns' bye week. So this tells me that the Browns think he's possibly ready to go by week 2, week 3, week 4. We'll see if he does eventually end up on injured reserve, but it does seem the certainty that, Alex Wright was headed to injured reserve seems to maybe winding down a little bit. Is it true? Is it not true? We'll find out Wednesday, 4:00 is when we'll find out more on that information. With the Browns currently at 52 on their roster after bringing Hailassie in and moving on from AJ Green, it appears pretty pure and simple that 53 spot is being held for Maurice Hurst. Once Jordan Kunaszyk does go on injured reserve, the Browns will bring back Maurice Hurst to the 53-man roster. I thought he was progressing well. And like I told you guys yesterday, Maurice Hurst, he might not be this big-time run stuffer. And, the Browns already addressed that, and they certainly addressed that a lot, of course, with Dalvin Tomlinson, of course, with Siaki Ika, Shelby Harris can be versatile playing from the interior. But Maurice Hurst, and if you get him out there on a field, where it's going to be, you're going to play 3 Dans, say Myles Garrett, say Ogbo, say Zadarius, and you play Maurice Hurst. Maurice Hurst is a really, really solid interior pass rusher, and we got to see that, of course, here over the summer with Maurice. So hopefully Big Mo, hopefully it works out, but it looks like Big Maurice Hurst will be back into the fold. I'm excited about it. This is a guy that I've always kind of had an epiphany for, even going back to his days at Michigan, had that weird draft process where they thought there might have been an issue with his heart, whatever, and then just had nothing but injuries, basically slowed down his career during his time with the Raiders and his other time in the NFL. I am Jeff Lloyd. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to go to segment 2 here, talk about the 15 that are out of the 16 current spots for the Cleveland Browns practice squad. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride with me. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Of course, now the Browns, 52 out of the 53 spot looks like it's reserved for Maurice Hurst. Right now, the Browns have 15 out of 16 on their practice squad. There was a lot of talk, and it was mentioned earlier in the day that it seemed like Kellen Mond was indeed coming back to the Browns practice squad. As of now, Kellen Mond is not coming back to the Browns practice squad. I guess we'll start there. They did bring in a quarterback. They brought in veteran quarterback, former Carolina Panthers starter, J.P. Walker. J.P. Walker has had times in some of the minor leagues of football. J.P. Walker came out of Temple, back in the day. I like the signing. I like JP Walker. He's just a little bit undersized, but he's got great mobility. He doesn't, throws a catchable, accurate pass. Again, look, if it's not Deshaun Watson playing, then it's going to be a problem for the Cleveland Browns. But JP Walker has been brought in the fold and will be your practice squad quarterback as of now. So that is the move there. So that is your first one there. Running back wise, Hassan Hall, who had glimpses this summer for the Cleveland Browns, has been brought back to the practice squad. It looks like Demetric Felton is headed off, ironically enough, to go be on the practice squad of the Cincinnati Bengals, which Demetric, well, obviously there were times, Demetric had, some success here with the Browns, but the Browns, it just wasn't working out, and they were given a big time opportunity over the summer, and none of these running backs basically jumped up and seized the opportunity. And if you want proof that none of these running backs seized the opportunity, behind Nick Chubb, you have Jerome Ford and you have Paris Strong Jr. And between the two of them, they have 17 carries in the NFL. But the Browns saw what they needed to see out of Kelly, saw what they needed to see out of Demetric Felton, saw what they needed to see out of Hassan Hall, and replaced, obviously, those guys have been moved on. Hall, I do like bringing him to the practice squad. He's got juice. He's got return ability. I just think he's a guy that needs more honing. This is going to be Stump Mitchell's basically protege here for the next few weeks, a guy for him to work with. And now at least there's somebody else where they break off into drills. At least there'll be 4 guys so they can team up and get those drills done together. We'll talk about Austin Watkins Jr. And he was put on waivers, and none of the other 31 NFL teams took a chance on bringing Austin Watkins in. I'm excited that Austin Watkins is back in the fold. I think he had a really, really nice summer for the Browns. Granted, his path to playing time, his path to any time in the 53-man roster right now, it's going to be difficult. Obviously, the Browns have 6 wide receivers. The Browns think highly of their 6 wide receivers. So in order for Watkins to get an opportunity, it's going to have to come at the cost of maybe somebody missing some time. Michael Dunn, and this was another strange one. Michael Dunn was brought back to the practice squad. Everybody just assumed that there was this wink deal that, hey, we're going to let you go, but we're going to sign you back to another contract here. I'm sure Michael Dunn will be elevated at some point to the 53-man roster. He might not stay in the practice squad for long, but for now, that is where Michael Dunn is. Isaiah Thomas was brought back, defensive end. Yeah, everybody remember Isaiah Thomas had the sack against Jonah Williams last year in the Monday night game. So Isaiah Thomas is brought back. Will continue to rehab the knee injury. Don't really have much of an update on that, but if you remember, he and Alex Wright both had knee surgery the same day a couple of weeks ago. Jalen Darden brought back. Jalen Darden is a guy that can supply this team with return ability. It had a terrible summer as far as just no luck. Missed a lot of time because he was injured, came back late in the fold, and didn't really even get an opportunity to play in any of the preseason games. But Jalen Darden did find a way back as well. Of course, now Tanner McAllister. Remember, the Browns had the 2 rookie undrafted defensive backs from Ohio State. Tanner McAllister has made the practice squad. Tristan Hill, we talked yesterday. Maurice Hurst had no guaranteed money, whereas Tristan Hill did have some guaranteed money. So Tristan Hill and his $300K will be on the practice squad. Sam Kamara comes back to the practice squad as well. Lonnie Phelps is on the practice squad. There could be an opportunity for Kamara or Phelps to actually be dressing for week 1 against the Bengals. As we assume Alex Wright probably will not make that game. We liked Charlie Thomas a lot this summer. Big hitter, brought in out of Georgia Tech. So bringing Charlie Thomas into the fold here, athletic linebacker, a guy who can focus. It's going to be interesting that the Browns are going to get an opportunity to continue to work with this player. Your 4th tight end, of course, he'll be on the practice squad. Zaire Mitchell-Payton, he's been here for a while with the Browns. He is still with this team. He will be on the practice squad. Cornerback Lorenzo Burns brought into the practice squad as well. And Lucas, we're going to just make sure we check. Havrisik has been brought in as your practice squad kicker. Don't know much. Obviously, he's never really been in the NFL. Was part on the practice squad in 2022 for the Colts. So Lucas is now into the fold. So Lucas is now brought into the fold here to be a help out, obviously, as being the practice squad kicker. The Browns are at 15 out of 16. The one name I did not mention, the Browns did agree to terms with former number 1 overall pick, the 17th overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Alex Leatherwood has agreed to terms to be on the Cleveland Browns practice squad. Now, a lot of potential here. Relative athletic score of almost, I think it was 9.68. So athletically, solid player. Was in Las Vegas 2 years ago as a first-round pick. And look, he didn't play well, obviously, and that's on him. But the whole situation in Las Vegas at the time just wasn't good. That he spent time last year with the Chicago Bears, did not make the Chicago Bears ultimately in a team that obviously needs a lot of player, a team that is trying to improve. But you have this addition here where you bring in Alex Leatherwood, and you have, what do you have? You have Bill Callahan. And Bill Callahan, you keep just trying to get him these guys to work with. And DeJuan Jones, and look, a lot of it to DeJuan Jones's credit, but also a lot of it to Bill Callahan's credit, put in the work. And all of a sudden, DeJuan Jones had a phenomenal rookie summer for the Browns. You're looking always to, hey, it's only drafted in the first round 2 years ago. So, to say that maybe his story is written or his time in the NFL is over or it's complete, it's way too early to tell. And I have no idea what the Browns' intentions are. And now keep in mind, Leatherwood, was a collegiate teammate of Jedrick Wills. Leatherwood played on the left side. Of course, Jedrick was a right tackle back in those days. But to get a player, with this type of pedigree on your practice squad, when there's a lot of teams in the NFL who certainly, could certainly use to chase a brand name, so to speak. But, maybe Leatherwood also saw the writing on the wall and said, I get the opportunity. And keep in mind, the Bears just had to pay him $4 million. When nobody picked him up on waivers, that means the Bears had to eat $4 million. So for Leatherwood, he gets his $4 million and whatever practice squad salary he gets. And now he gets a chance to, become the protege, so to speak, of course, with one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. So you get this opportunity where you get and we'll see how it works out with Leatherwood. Could be something, could be nothing. With players like this, and I said it a few years ago, and I said it with Malik McDowell. This is a guy that could be here, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 years. Does he take to coaching? Does he improve? Does he get better? Does his footwork get better? Does he sustain his blocks? If the Browns can get all this type of action out of a player like that, this is a no-brainer move here. You just picked up a former first-round pick. I think he's 24 years old. And you get the opportunity to have a guy like Bill Callahan work with him, try to improve him, try to get him back to what he was, which led to him being the 17th overall pick in the 2021 draft to the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to continue it up here. Just general Browns news, some thoughts on the day to this point. Browns are on the practice field now. The assumption will be come 4 o'clock that at least Jordan Kunaszyk will go to injured reserve, which will bring up the opportunity, of course, for Maurice Hurst to be brought back to the 53. We'll see, what the deal is and if we get any more information as far as Alex Wright. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Segment 3 coming up next. Appreciate you all for being along with me. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps getting larger and larger. I am thankful for that. Make sure you're part of the everyday crowd. And the best way to do that is subscribe to the Locked On Brown YouTube page. And of course, Locked On Browns is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Slip this one in here this morning before the flurry of activities. Brownie the Elf is going to return to midfield for the 2023 season. You guys know my thoughts on this. It's an elf, for God's sakes. The helmet, I know some people suggested maybe putting Jim Brown's number out there. Again, not a big fan of that. It was that or was the dog logo? I don't mind the dog logo. My question would have been how it would have looked on the field. We already know what Brownie the Elf looks like. It didn't do much for the team last year. Let's see if they can get a chance for, maybe Brownie the Elf to be a little bit more of a good luck charm here in 2023. Browns are practicing today at the stadium. Dustin Hopkins will be in his first action with the Browns kicking, so he'll get his first taste of, obviously, Cleveland Browns Stadium, getting himself ready for, his debut as the Browns kicker. September 10th, Sunday, home opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. Other news here, and just the way that the day worked, I like what this team has done. They were given the opportunity here to put together a strong 53-man roster, and with the 16-player practice squad, which went into effect during the COVID years, and I think everybody liked it so much they've just continued with it. Look, it's you're not going to get any better being away from football. So the fact that the NFL was smart enough to take a rule that they developed during COVID, and the reason they did is they basically wanted to keep all these players as quarantined as they possibly could, of course, except for game day. But having, 16 guys on a player squad, coaches like that, it made for better practices. It was a chance to basically tell some of your veterans, hey, you don't have to practice every single day. I know the old folks of football probably cringe every time they hear those types of words, but, there's times where veterans need days off. And if you remember, we had J.C. Treader, who basically showed up on Friday and basically, moved around a couple, got the gist of the game plan, and then went out there every Sunday. But it gives guys a chance to improve their game, get in. And one of the biggest things is you get in with a coaching staff, and then changes come. And say one coach leaves and goes to another organization and says, well, I see the guys that you have here, but I had a practice squad guy in Cleveland I think is better than these two guys. So why don't we go chase him down? It's, it's the NFL form of networking, so to speak. So you get to have these players in, you get to work with them longer. Not everybody develops, as we all know. Some guys develop quickly. Some guys takes a little longer to develop. But the NFL is giving the opportunity for NFL franchises to do this, that, and to develop talent, and also to have a little bit more competitive practices, and also allows for teams to have the understanding that maybe some guys just need a day off from practice, and it allows them to do that. For the 15 that are currently on the practice squad, I wouldn't say there are, a ton of surprises besides Leatherwood and certainly JP Walker. Those ones, I mean, we were talking it was all over social media, and, everybody trying to, first it, or, that Alex come on, guys. The Browns have always been a team, and Andrew Berry has always been a guy that is looking for players who were high picks and flamed out in other places. But we had the Malik McDowell signing a few years ago. I mean, God's sakes, they found him out of prison, for God's sakes, and put him on this team. You never stop chasing potential talent. It's what you're paid to do. That is what your job is. You're trying to put the best 53-man roster out there, and guys go down. You will hopefully want to have the best practice squad players there are to go in and replace them. This is a business. This is how businesses run. So he's always been really, really good as far as that is concerned. And just, some of the other ones, with all that went on as far as Austin Watkins, and, everybody almost, want to, set up vigils, and I'm just as guilty. I really, thought this guy deserved to be on the 53-man roster. And, if it was any season in the last 17, he probably would have been an absolute lock to make the Cleveland Browns final roster. But the wide receiver room now is what it is, and it's a potentially deep, talented group with players like Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, and of course, with Marquise Goodwin back, Cedric Tillman drafted, David Bell going into year 2. It's a tough room to make. Darden, you never know. The opportunity is there to have that return ability. I'm not sure right now who is essentially going to be the kickoff return man. Will it be Jerome Ford just coming back off of a hamstring injury? If not, Jalen Darden could be a guy that's elevated from the 53, from the practice squad, just to be the kick returner in week 1. It's certainly a possibility for him. Also, with Jerome Ford, now that he's maybe most likely running back 2 on this team, do the Browns feel that he is too important to basically be gambling with him returning kicks? Certainly all things to consider there. McAllister, I thought, was a nice signing because the Browns did keep the 5 safeties, which I wasn't sure of. And the Browns have the heavy focus, in my opinion, on as far as guys they kept who have a high special teams background. Matthew Adams, of course, being one of those players. Of course, Bell being one of those players. Mike Ford, the cornerback, being one of those players. The Browns tried to do everything they could to satisfy the needs their defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz had. All that worked on the defensive line, but they also brought Bubba Ventrone in with the thought of, hey man, we're going to do what we can. And this is what you kind of love about the way the Browns and Andrew Berry, and certainly using Jimmy Haslam's money, is it's not just one thing. You put in Jim Schwartz, but you got to put a lot of effort in to make sure you're giving Jim Schwartz something to work with. You bring in Bubba Ventrone. They value Bubba Ventrone. They understand that Bubba Ventrone's coming here with most likely the idea of going further down the road. Bubba Ventrone certainly has aspirations of more than just being a special teams coach in this league. But you get him players just like Deshaun Watson. You invested all you did into the wide receivers. You kept the offensive line intact, and even re-signed Posick, gave him bigger numbers. You also picked up the 5th-year option on Jedrick Wills because they think, I don't know if all of us do, they think Jedrick Wills is hopefully going to be and finally show the potential that they believed he was going to be when they made him their first choice in the 2020 NFL draft. Charlie Thomas was one I liked, and this was Charlie Thomas for me in the beginning when the preseason game started. I liked Charlie Thomas. I thought this was going to be a guy that was in contention to make the roster. Then all of a sudden, Diabate just kind of came on the scene and then had that game against the Eagles that just wowed everybody. You just saw him filling holes. You saw him reading guards, just basically beating people to the hole, and basically really, really made a name for himself. Charlie Thomas is this big, athletic guy on a roster. Like, remember we talked the other day, we talked about, linebackers, safeties, hybrid defender. That's what he is. And, that hit in the Hall of Fame game where, I mean, he smacked the New York Jets player so hard the ball went 12 yards and flew out of bounds. You don't see a lot of hits like that. And, something like that is all right away. It's one of those things where it was like, all right, well, who's 35? Because that dude just absolutely stoned that dude. So Charlie Thomas gets the opportunity here. Sam Kamara, Lonnie Phelps are your practice squad edge guys. We know most likely Isaiah Thomas, there'd be no way he could be elevated for week 1. So there's certainly a possibility for Kamara or Phelps to be a guy that's elevated for week 1 for the season opener against the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll continue here throughout the day and the days to come here, as a lot of this will continue to fluctuate. But the Browns currently 52 out of 53 on the roster. The belief is, of course, that it will be Maurice Hurst joining the 53-man roster. Browns 15 out of 16 right now on the practice squad. Are they holding that spot for the hopes of A.J. Green to come back? Are they in negotiations with a couple of guys? Are they waiting for somebody who just got cut today once teams started making changes? Because maybe the Browns have a spot on their practice squad for them. So 2 openings, so to speak, for the team right now. And also, I think last, which seems a little important that maybe it's gotten glazed over here today. It doesn't seem like there's a certainty anymore that Alex Wright is a guy that's going to be headed to short-term IR. Maybe he's a little further down the road than we all thought. But it just seems that talk and that certainty that Alex Wright was a guy that's going to be sent to short-term IR. It seemed that talk is dwindling, or it certainly seemed died down today, which is a very, very busy day with, of course, the waiver claims and then building the practice squad. I am Jeff Lloyd. I've been here now my 7th season with Locked On Browns. I appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube page. Join the everyday crowd. Of course, the podcast is always free. It's always available wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.